Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and I have Ben Chasteen in the house with us tonight. It's good to be on another Wednesday evening on Aftermath FM. And me and Ben Chasteen have a lot of projects in the works. He's got a lot of amazing things going on. Before I bring him on, I want to remind you all to check out my art at shamanspirits.com because that is how I fund myself and keep my show going. So if you'd like to support me and everything I'm doing, definitely go check out my art, which is, let me pull it up here at shamanspirits.com. They're basically like a mix between wands and spears. I have quite a few new spears in the newer collection left, and some left in the Odyssey collection. They're all filled with copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand collected from sacred places around the world down the insides. They're also painted with propsicles that have been found around the world. And they're all charged onto an energetic collective. So every person who has their own spear and charges their own makes the whole collective stronger. And every new spear I make also makes the whole collective stronger. So pretty interesting. And I will be selling these at the Conscious Life Expo coming up in not this weekend, but the following weekend. I'll also be speaking there. So you can, if you're in the LA area, I definitely recommend checking that out. And yeah, so it's going to be really a fun event. I believe Ben is going to be joining me with that. So let's go bring him on here. Hey Ben, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you doing, Apollo?
I'm doing good. I'm just getting prepared to go out to Miami for this Project Veritas event this weekend that we'll be at. It's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think this is I'm really looking forward to this too. So they're going to start doing more of these tours, I guess, especially after what like with everything coming out, especially with the more recent stuff that they had with these documents that came out. So so James O'Keefe, who is like basically founded Project Veritas, he just came out with a book. And so I think this is more about promoting the book, but there's a lot of speakers that are going to be there and he's going to be speaking. And there's a lot of really interesting people going to be there just attending as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen and who's there. And
who's some of the other people that are going to be speaking? I'm going to be honest, I haven't even really looked at that event. I'm just like, Project Veritas, hell yeah, I'm going to be there. I have no idea what's going on, honestly.
I saw a list and now I can't remember. I just remember there was about like 5 speakers. I want to say Laura Loomer was going to, I don't know if she's speaking, but she's going to be there. And there was definitely like few others. Some of the people that came out through Project Veritas. I think the Facebook whistleblower is going to be there. I don't know if Zach Voorhees is going to be there or not. I didn't see his name.
I feel like it would make sense if he were there.
Yeah, it definitely would. I know he's in California, so I don't know, but
what about that pillow guy? He's at all the events. I know his name. I just like to call him the pillow guy.
I don't know if this one. But
yeah, well, I guess he's not really serious enough for Project Veritas.
maybe. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool, and just really to be there and see everything that's going to happen. So I'm looking forward to it. So it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be awesome. So you have a lot of things in the works. Now you have
a lot of
Edge of Wonder. Now you have Ben Solo. You got Rise TV. So what's going on with all that? I know some of the audience, when I do shows and you're in the comments, people are like, "Oh, I miss your show, Ben." They don't realize you still have a show.
I know, and like ever since we got deleted on YouTube and Twitter, it's been very challenging for us. We decided a while ago, we decided to rebrand the website from edgeofwonder.tv to rise.tv just because, one, we didn't want to keep the focus on us, and 2, we can make this a lot bigger. So that's the goal. And so Rob and I, we just came out with a series called All About Transhumanism, a 4-part series. And now we're releasing our Secret World of Tartaria series. So that's also a 4-part series. I think we're on episode 2 right now. So I think the third.
I need to see that. I don't know, when you guys were working on it, I was hearing about it, and I still haven't gotten around to seeing it yet. So I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, and that's something we can even talk about now if you want, because this is so interesting. Like, if people, I know like a lot of people probably heard of Tartaria, but most people don't really know. I didn't even really know exactly what it was. When you look it up on Wikipedia, it will tell you that it's just like a region that is no more, that was combined of what is now like Russia and parts of Mongolia and even Turkey, but they just look at it as a region. Well, when we started looking into it, I found solid evidence that wasn't just a region, but it was a nation, that this was actual people of the Tartaria world. Actually, that's where we get tartar sauce from. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, and Tartaria is on all maps up until 1850. Literally, right after 1850, you don't see Tartaria on the maps anymore. And
what region of the world is like Russia, China, like
Russia,
somewhere in that area, right?
it covers all of Mongolia, parts of Russia, Turkey, a little bit more of the Middle East countries, and even as far as now I can't remember if it was one of the, it might have been Switzerland, I can't remember now, but it was one of the a couple other countries that are there, and they actually have their own flags, and one of them is a dragon and the other one is an owl. And we found that the Mongolian people were once upon a time called the Tatars. So This is actually where Mongolia basically came from. And there's even evidence to show that it looks like, so the Great Wall of China is a lot older than what we think. It's actually, documented, it's about 400 BC, and it's probably older than that. But it looks like once upon a time, it was more like pillars. And then like during each dynasty, the emperors kind of like added to it. So it's not just from one dynasty. It's almost like, I think it was the Yellow Emperor that eventually started to build onto it. And I think it was a structure that was already there. And it looks like it was actually built by these Tartarians.
Wow, that's interesting. You know, that tends to be very common with a lot of these temples. Like, you know, from my understanding, a lot of the temples in Egypt were actually, like, the Egyptian part of them were built over older foundations from more ancient civilizations.
Exactly. And that's actually going to be our next series, by the way, is all going to be about ancient civilizations, starting with Atlantis.
Oh, my favorite topic.
Yeah, and then coming into Egypt. And the stuff about Egypt is just insane, actually. Because what actually, coming out of the Tartarian series, we were like, oh man, we should, like, there's so much connections with Tartaria and Atlantis, actually. And Marco Polo comes along with all of this because he started documenting all of these strange creatures. And when you look it up online, mainstream media science out there will just say, oh, he got it wrong, or he was talking about a rhino. Like, he actually describes a unicorn. And they're like, oh no, he's talking about a rhino. But when you really look at it, he's not. And he even talks about what it looks like. He said there's a single horn in the center of the forehead. Rhinos, you know, have one big horn, more of like at the end of their snout, and maybe like a smaller one. They're not hairy. He said these were hairy creatures. And he said they're depicted in ways that are like very beautiful, like these horses that are, you know, unicorn horses. But
they're actually very deadly, right?
Yeah, they're more like a wild boar. Like, think of a wild hairy boar with a long tail and like a really big horn sticking.
Wow. I mean, there's so many different creatures on the earth. I totally believe it. I think it's very likely.
Completely. And you know, and then he even describes a dinosaur. There's an upright walking lizard that he describes as being like somewhere around 15 feet tall. And everyone's like, oh, he's talking about an alligator. And it's like, no, he actually describes an upright walking lizard with 2 legs and 2 arms and a long tail and a giant head walking upright. And it's like, that's not an alligator.
Wait, so are you saying that Tartaria was around the time that Marco Polo was around?
Yes. So this is what's fascinating. You know, coming into this actually took me so long to research because I found that a lot of information out there from both sides, from people trying to explain what Tartaria is from, like, you know, I guess you could say from the conspiracy side, and from the mainstream side. It was like everybody had parts right and everybody had parts wrong. And what I started realizing is it looks like there was almost two stages of Tartaria. And you could almost say one was pre-flood and one was post-flood, like the great flood that happened. And what it looked like was more like the older, I should say, like Tartaria, you know, 2.0 or 1.0 was more like Atlantis. And actually, I think it has connections to Atlantis. And then the second, like 2.0, would be kind of like after a disaster happened, and then you have the Mongolians. But there really does seem to be a lot of strange looking creatures that were around. And Marco Polo was around, like I just...
It's like 1300s?
Somewhere around there, somewhere between...
I was going to say that's fairly recent for it being something that they say isn't in history technically, like in our history books.
And what I really found out through doing this research, because the other aspect of this, there's a CIA document that came out, and it's officially on the CIA website, and it's from the Soviets, from like the Soviet Union before they were, like, you know, still the Soviet Union. And basically they were specifically describing in this document, it was like a 12-page document, why they want to cover up the truth about what is really Tartaria.
And why is that?
It's because it went against the communist ideology. So
how?
Because it has so much roots. It has a very deep root in like culture and all these strange creatures. So if you start having all these strange creatures that exist, well, that goes against Darwin's theory of evolution completely. And Darwin's theory of evolution goes hand in hand with communism. It was, I think it was Marx. It was one or the other. It was Marx that was inspired by Darwin, or Darwin was inspired by Marx. I always kind of forget which of the two. But they were. It's like whatever came second was following the other one, and they started using this. And I think it was Marx that was inspired by Darwin, because they realized that we can use this to push this agenda of communism. Because if you start thinking about it, like giants is the main thing. The world of Tartaria is full of giants. Every text, every map that you see back in the day actually has giants on it. And there's all these old drawings of it and everything else. Well, if now all of a sudden, if you have giants into the mix, again, this goes against with Darwin's theory of evolution.
Well, giants have been found all over the world.
Exactly.
I mean, especially out here in America. I know Ohio, there was supposedly some ancient battle, and most of the mounds out there apparently are where the giants are buried. With
exactly. Yeah, I mean, the serpent, I'm from Ohio, right? So the Serpent Mound in Ohio, you're not allowed to do anything on that area. And you know, growing up, we were always told that it was a sacred Indian burial ground. But now there's a lot of evidence to support that it was a tomb of giants, actually. And that's one of the reasons why they say they don't want you to explore that area or like dig down, because they don't want to like have all these resurface. But Abraham Lincoln, he gave a speech that directly talked about giants. Mm-hmm. So it was really common, actually. The more I started researching this, the more I realized that it was very common for people to believe in giants. Like I
Well, it
said,
talks about it in the Bible. I mean, there's ancient
exactly,
cultures all around the world. I think there's truth to this. I think there's a lot of truth to this. And I mean,
exactly. Well,
our friend Brad also goes around showing the photos that archaeologists have uncovered of these before, or the skeletons archaeologists have uncovered. But I mean, obviously, the Smithsonian comes in, and usually Smithsonian gates them. So
yeah. Yeah, and Matthew just made a comment about the Mongol and the Turkish tribes. That's exactly it. Genghis Khan is like he was I guess you could say, the emperor of Tartaria. I mean there's a book literally called the people of the Tartaria, or the Tartars. And back then they called the Mongols the Tartars. Like that's what they were called. It's only in recent times where we kind of change these names, and like I said, it kind of disappears off the map. But yeah, but the giants aspects, it's so fascinating because, like you were talking about the Bible, Paula, and it's like I think this is one of the reasons why they've tried to eliminate the ideology of giants. And you can find, we've like in our series, we've pulled up so many articles, even from 1930s, mainstream articles. One was from the New York Times, one was from AP, Associated Press. Another one, I think, was from LA Times, talking about these sites that were found with giant bones in them. And they had photos in these newspapers with it. So,
the LA Times said that, really?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, they have the most propagandized headlines I've ever seen. I'm surprised. It must have been from years ago, right?
It was either the LA Times or it was like the San Francisco Chronicle. It was one of those two anyway out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. And again, I think that, it kind of proves, with the communist ideology, it's based around atheism. So it's like, if they would acknowledge that giants are real, then it almost proves that partially that the Bible is partially at least truth in this aspect. And since they're trying to promote atheism and strike down all religions, I believe this is kind of the root reason why we see this in our society.
I feel that maybe part of that also could be the fact that maybe certain people on the planet right now, like maybe that was a race that could have been around from, possibly like the Anunnaki, and then, or, some sort of mixed race that was like humans mixed with another race. And then maybe, some of the bloodlines on the planet right now might still be connected to them. So they don't want people to know about it because they don't want that connection revealed.
Yeah, exactly. I think all of this kind of plays into it. I mean, with everything that's going on globally, it's just another layer of control. It's like, well, why would they want to cover this up? Like, what's such a big deal? Well, if they can, it's not just controlling the negative or the narrative. They can also control the science and control all this aspect. Then it's like, we're just, we don't ask as many questions. If all of a sudden, you find out giants are real, or there really was like these different creatures that existed, you start asking all these questions. Well, how come we don't know about them? Are they from another world, or are these like, aliens, extraterrestrials? How did they get here? Where did they come from? Where did we come from? And then it just brings up so many more questions. And it's like, nope, none of this exists. Well, then we're just like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to turn on my TV and watch my TV shows and not think about the world. Just do what I'm told, and that's what they want us to be. They just want, you need to do this, the government's telling you need to do this. Okay, yeah, I need to do that because that's what the government is saying. It's like,
and that brings us to the topic of tonight's show, Transcending Prison Planet, or the prison planet mentality. This is obviously something that is coming up very heavily in the human consciousness lately, and I can see that. I'm sure as someone else who does interviews, like I notice that a lot of times when I interview people, or just when I meet people in general, I feel like the universe like speaks to me through people. And it's been so interesting because on my show lately, almost every single person I've been interviewing, it's like all this keeps coming through about the human consciousness shift and coming out of this prison planet mentality. And it is like the show won't even be about that topic, and it always comes through. And I think it's because it's something that's really coming up in the collective right now. And there's all these agendas that are taking place. Obviously, you cover a lot of these, obviously, on your show. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on, I mean, I know it's a very big topic, but how do we transcend this prison planet mentality? Because it's a mentality, really. We have the power. We all have the power to come together and transcend this.
I think, I'm always telling people I'm not trying to change your opinion on anything specific. I'm not trying to get you, it's like, to be a certain way or think a certain way. It's like, all I'm really trying to do is bring in questions to people's lives that they may have never thought about. Because once you start asking questions that you've never really pondered before, or start finding the right questions to ask, that's when things start to change. Sometimes I just don't understand some of the celebrity aspect right now. Like, for example, Joe Rogan had his show with Dr. Malone, who, by the way, created the technology.
Be careful what you're saying.
I am. But he created, the mRNA technology that goes into, the shot. So,
that interview was amazing, by the way. Like, everyone needs to see that. Everyone.
And it's like, this is not about being anti or pro. This is just about uncovering the truth and not having a mandate, but then you have Neil Young coming out today saying that he wants Joe Rogan kicked off of Spotify, or he's going to pull a song.
I was just looking at this right before the show. What's that song? He has a song. It's something about freedom, right? What's the song again? How does it go?
I can't. Well, he's got a couple of them, and like,
hold on.
A statement.
I need to remember what Neil Young's song about freedom.
Yeah. Pull that up, because he even had a statement that was saying something like, don't let the government tell you what to do.
Oh yeah, he has the song "Keep on Rocking the Free World."
Yeah, keep on rocking in the free world.
What's the lyrics to that again? Hold on. I need to know.
That is the song of, like, everyone plays that at concerts. It's like, yeah, freedom, we're free here. And it's like, what the heck? Like, what? Like, what? I mean, it was totally dumbfounding for me. Like, I mean, I didn't see one positive comment anywhere from anybody saying, like, yeah, go Neil Young. It's just like, what? Wait, what?
Like, how does he have a song about, like, keep on rocking the free world, and then, he's like, no, we have to cancel these shows, no freedom of speech. It's like, come on, like, what? That is so hypocritical. You gotta be kidding me.
Especially music. Like, music was, especially today's music, coming out of the 70s, it was all about, like, resisting the government, not giving in, and fighting for what you believe in. And it's like, wait a minute.
I love 70s music is my favorite music, as you know very well. I love 70s music. That vibe, that era, like, there's just a frequency. The frequency of the music in that era is just very pro-freedom. I don't know. It's just something amazing about it. And it just hasn't been around since then. It really hasn't.
So, I didn't know this. Someone's asking if I heard the new Kid Rock song, and I have not. And I just looked it up just now.
I heard Kid Rock's pretty pretty
Yeah.
awake with everything.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
always
yeah.
liked him. I always liked that picture song he had with Sheryl Crow.
I'll be
Was,
honest, I never did like him, but I found out
I
like
mean,
he's a real
it's
patriot in
okay.
this case.
Yeah,
So his song is called "We the People." That can
yeah.
just
That's been out for a while, hasn't it? Oh, maybe it's
maybe I'm not
newer.
really sure, but and again, the problem is that it's like what's happening in Canada right now. You have like 50,000 truckers, over 500,000 people right now protesting in Canada, and everyone's, the
I
media.
thought that was happening here. That's in Canada.
Yeah, it's in Canada, and the media is
Oh,
bashing this, saying like they're trying to make this like an anti-V whole thing, and
well,
the
everyone should be that way. I mean,
but it's like but the thing is, a lot of these truckers got it. They're not anti-V, they're anti-mandate. And these are
yeah,
two totally separate different things that the media jumbles up together. And it's like I'm the same way. I've never been anti-V. I mean, I know firsthand that these can work. The problem is that when you start forcing it on people, especially with something that isn't officially approved by the FDA, it's only been approved for bringing it out in a fast pace, but it's not officially approved, then
yeah.
it's like, okay,
And that's
I have a problem with. It's like, hey, wait a couple years, see how, just to see if there's any side effects and stuff, because we're not going to know for a little while, and then it's like, okay, then, I guess, if you're going to do something, but that's what it gets crazy. And then, I don't want to get
yeah.
into this conversation.
And that's what is so awesome to me that about Joe Rogan's show and having that doctor on. He really reaches like a middle audience where it's like people that aren't necessarily like maybe they're on the left, but they're like bros that smoke weed or whatever. But it's like he's bringing people that are kind of in the middle to like help them realize what's going on, and I respect that, and I think there needs to be a lot of that going on right now. We need people to be able to reach that middle crowd, and I've been talking about that with people here in LA. I'm a part of a lot of this sort of, there's like a weird, like, for people that don't know, and a lot of people don't know this, there's a weird sort of rebel underground thing going on right now in LA with all these mandates in the industry, and it's a very small group, but it's really growing. And someone I work with in the industry very closely, I won't say how they're related to me, but they actually they've been doing a lot of these different movements around here, like against the mandates. And they noticed that actually a lot of people that are normally, would be more on one side of things politically, that aren't really for these mandates normally, they're against it because they're vegan. There's like this whole vegan crowd in like Venice that is like, I'm not going to take these because there's like aborted fetus cells in these, and like me personally, I grew up, I'm like a vitamin specialist. I grew up, I only like to eat organic food for the most part. I'm just have been very like natural, holistic health kind of person my whole life, and I don't take I don't ever take vaccines. I never even took flu shots. So
Well, I was the same way. Like literally, my like, gosh, ever since I was probably in my teens, I just stopped because I remember I went to the hospital one time because I just had these like horrible migraine headaches. And they're basically like, yeah, we don't know what's going on with you, but here's some drugs and, you'll feel better. And I'm like, but can you tell me? Like, I don't, it's great. I can feel better now, but I want to feel, I want to understand what's going on with me. So therefore I can like, stop this from happening in the future. And they're like, yeah, we don't know, we actually don't know what's going on. And ever since that moment, I just like, so why am I here? That's literally what I said to them. I was like, this doesn't make any sense, So I got super into like holistic health after that. I mean, I got into massage therapy. I even learned all about Chinese medicine. I learned all about different teas and tonics with the teas, what, acupuncture, like all of this. Like I learned so much during this whole entire time. And I started working at Whole Foods. So I didn't even take Tylenol or anything else like that from like early 2000s even. So like if for me, if anything goes on with me, I like find it within myself to figure out, what I'm going through, look inside myself, or, do something more on the holistic side. And like
Yeah.
for example, with the migraine headaches, I started realizing that bad coffee or too much caffeine gives me these, even chocolate. Like I found out that even there's some chocolate that I'll eat I have to be careful with caffeine and chocolate now with migraines. But, it's just like, those are the kind of things that they should be able to tell you, but they can't. And instead it's like, well, here, we're just going to inject you with a drug or give you this or give you that. And it's like, okay, maybe taking something, but if I'm going to inject something in my body, I want to know everything that what's in it. What am I injecting myself with? What is this for? What are the ingredients? And I've just been like this ever since I was like, 15, really. So
Yeah, it's the same for me. I mean, I grew up with an energy worker in the family, someone who does different energy modalities. And, he always gave my family homeopathic medicines whenever we had issues or did like energy work on us. So I just grew up like never really believing in the pharmaceutical industry and the whole system with it. And I mean, he always would tell me, it's like I know this now from experience, but he'd always tell me growing up, he's like, this system, they don't want patients, they want customers. It's like you go in and say what your problem is, they are just basically paid off to just give you a prescription that's going to cause 10 more problems instead of actually figuring out the source of what's going on, which is usually something that started on a vibrational level, like it's some sort of emotional spiritual problem.
It's so true. And like, the biggest problem I had when the lockdown started, because I actually I was able, because I worked in like we had our own office. I still went to work all through the pandemic, through March, April, May of 2020. I was literally the only person on the train for like 2 months. Like sometimes I wouldn't even see the person collecting tickets because they wouldn't even walk through because no one was on the train. So, and then they even stopped collecting tickets at one point. So it was like literally just me. I would see everything, and the only thing that was allowed to stay open was McDonald's. So the only option I had to eat while I was there, if I didn't bring food, was McDonald's. Everything else was forced to shut down. Even like
I would rather starve.
Yeah, even like the health smoothie store where it's like, no, you can't stay open. But McDonald's, oh, that's essential. You can stay open. And it's like, oh my gosh.
And that's what the crazy thing about all of this is. It seems like everything they're trying to promote throughout this whole thing that's supposed to be for your health is always things that are the exact opposite, like the worst thing for your health.
Right.
It's like, like you said, they're pushing McDonald's, they're pushing staying inside instead of being outside and getting fresh air and working out and being in nature. It's like everything is really the exact opposite of what it means to be healthy. So it's pretty obvious that this is an agenda that doesn't make sense or isn't for our best interests.
Yeah, and again, like, you would think with all the jab, sorry, yeah. But you would think with everything coming out that what we would see is a massive decline in everything. But we're seeing
that's not the case. And I'm seeing this in person with a lot of my friends out here. They got it because you have to in LA. And they all got sick and I've been fine. And so I did that just proves to me and it proved to them. They're like, wow, I should have listened to you.
Yeah. And I'm really like, again, my whole thing is like, I'm really not trying to be anti anything with this. I'm just trying to say like, okay, if you want me to take something, I need to understand everything that's going on. And, I've done a lot of research. I actually personally know a biologist, one of my virologist. Yeah. One of my friends, her father is one and works on these exact things. And he took it, and he told me his personal understanding of what this is. And he basically was just like, yeah, he's like, for you, I wouldn't recommend you take this. He's like, I kind of know what's in it. And he's like, he didn't want to go into details with anything, but his understanding was that, this whole thing is not right. Like, why they shouldn't be pushing something that's in still the experimental stage. It's different, like we all have to go through stuff when we're born. And even that's
Yeah, and that bothers me. I mean, that's always bothered me. Even before all this, I'm like, if I ever had a kid, I wouldn't want to, and there is, it's like, okay, well, what about like, was it polio and chicken pox? But I mean, that's the thing where it's like, someone gets it and then, it sucks, but then they're okay later. I got a chicken pox shot when I was younger, and
yeah,
it's like we could probably be so much different if we weren't shot up with all these things when we were babies. Like, it makes me wonder, like, is that
a reaction to something that we're given? That's something to really think about. And like, for example, one of my friends, their child is not like, they had a home baby. They didn't go through any of this. She's like, they didn't get a single shot for her, and they were trying to put her in a public school, and they're like, oh, you can't take her to school unless she has, these. And they're like, but isn't that the point? Like, shouldn't she be more in danger from getting these things from the other kids because she's not protected and everybody else is? And
it's never made sense. This whole and this was something that was going on before all of this. And you remember that, right? Like, there was like a whole huge conversation about this and like infighting about this between both political parties before the pandemic started. So it almost seems to me like they were using that to like set the stage for the separation the agendas they're pushing later. You remember that, right? I mean, that was like a year or two before, like they were like talking about it with flu shots.
Exactly. And, and it's like, I was talking to a doctor at a recent event, and he actually got fired for just doing a study. It was a completely unbiased study. He surveyed, he was a doctor. He looked at people who took it, who didn't take it, and all he did was write down his results. He wasn't putting his own opinion on anything, and they fired him over his paper. And, one thing, I brought up this whole point about, what we were just talking about. And he said, yeah, it's interesting. You could have a child that actually has AIDS, and, no one's going to say anything about it. But if they didn't get any of these shots, then all of a sudden they can't go to school. So who's really, it's just like, it's a weird world we're living in, for sure. But, and you were asking more of a positive twist. You were asking the question in the earlier, like, how do we transcend this? Like, what do we?
Yeah. Let's take this the positive route now.
Yeah. So I think like the key aspect to this, I think the reason why I was bringing all this up is getting back to really asking people questions.
Yeah.
I think people are starting to kind of wake up on their own. There's a lot of people that I personally know that got the shot but are not for the mandate. And I know there's a lot of celebrities out there that feel the same way, but they just won't speak out about it out of fear of being ridiculed and whatnot. But, I actually saw a Facebook post from somebody who's just totally, just listens to the mainstream media, does what they're supposed to do by the, government says XYZ and they do XYZ. And they were in the hospital because they had they started having the heart problems from the shot, you know, and they said it was a very rare occurrence that this happens. And he said every single person in his ward or in the hospital in the ER or the hospital room that he was in, they all had the same problem, and they were all there because of the same problem. So he said, if this is a rare occurrence, why is this whole like hospital area all filled with people like me that have the same issue after taking the shot? And he's like, and he didn't understand it. He's like, why are they lying to us? I don't understand. And I think like, you know, the root of all this really comes down to, you know, greed, money, power, like all of this stuff, you know, and I think this is really hard for people to grasp, but I think finally people are waking up. And I think the key aspect is it's not really getting people to stop listening to the media. It's to help people understand who the media is, what's behind them. You know, there's really only six main medias. And honestly, at this point, I think only 4 companies really.
Yeah, I think they've been buying each other up. I know Disney ended up buying out Fox, so it's like people think, you know, like Fox News, oh, that's, you know, but they're owned by Disney now. So, you know, and I think that happened with some other companies too. So I'm not even sure if it's 6 anymore. It's probably even less now.
Yeah, and through this pandemic, it created more billionaires than ever before. There are now more billionaires on our planet than there's ever been, and more poor people than there's ever been. So the whole balance shifted. You know, then you got a lot of these companies that are making all this, the medical industry. I mean, they, you know, made billions and billions and billions, like 40 billion. And, you know, if I was one of these people, actually, I have a friend who bought stock in Pfizer right when all this was going on. I mean, he was like, I hate.
He wasn't even for it, but he's like, hey, if I do this, I'll make money.
That's exactly what he said. He's like, you know, I'm not for this. I'm not doing this. I'm not getting this, but I see where this is going. And then like early in the pandemic, he's like, I'm buying stock, and he made quite a bit from Pfizer. So, you know, if you're one of these guys, you know, and you're, you know, I mean, this is all kind of like, really, this is kind of like insider trading is what this is. You know, if all these people getting together, especially from these different organizations and companies, big companies I'm talking about, government even, you know, it's almost like they all knew what was going to happen. And that's the thing that worries me. Who has stock? I mean, it came out, you know, I don't like to criticize people. I don't like to say really negative things. It came out, though, with Dr. Fauci, that there's $10 million. This is not conspiracy. This is honest to God. There's $10 million that was missing from his, they're unaccounted for. So somehow he got $10 million that isn't quite documented. And they found it through, there was a specific fund, and that's where it gets questionable. It's like, you know, wait a minute, where did this money come from? You know, and that's the part that's hard. You don't know if people are getting kickbacks. And, you know, I know for a fact doctors are. When doctors subscribe medication, they actually get some funding from whatever medication that they use, because it's like, hey, we're trying to promote our drug. If you give this out, you know, for every person you give this out, you get X amount of dollars from this. And that's just how a lot of this industry works. So, you know, it's really sad. And it's not about turning these things off, but it's really about educating people, because the media we're like, I think people that are just kind of starting to wake up, they're waiting for the media to try to expose and explain all of this. And that's,
to me, it's like, I cannot even fathom how people still think that, you know, media, some people out there still think that the media is there for them, that, you know, they have their best interests at heart. It's like, they're getting paid off by all these companies. They're getting funded by all these companies to say to push these agendas, and it's unfortunate, and so, it's like, how do we go through all this? A lot of what we're saying here, and, it's like, how do we get around this? How do we transcend this? Or obviously in this prison planet mentality, there's only a few people really, it's not a very big group of people who are running and controlling all of this and making all these moves and causing all these agendas to take place. And it's like, how do we get around that, And, obviously this is what the series I'm working on right now. I don't know if you want me to mention that or if I should
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so should I do the first announcement? So I'm going to be doing a series on Rise TV called Solutions for Humanity, which is my presentation I normally give, but I've actually been researching very much in detail, more with the topics that I cover in my presentation, and I'm really excited about it. But the first episode, I don't know if I should say the first episode. Should I say that? Or
maybe not yet. No.
Okay.
We can say that you're doing that, and then we'll wait a little bit more until things are there. But
but it's like a lot of what I'm researching. It seems like it always goes back to, there's certain things that seem to be in the way. And the first issue is, obviously the globalist cabal. That's the first thing that's kind of in our way. And, it's like a problem that, we've been trying, a lot of us have realized and have been trying to figure out for a while. It's like, why are we allowing these people to be in power? And, how do we get around it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, that's been this big question. Why are we giving these people so much authority to dictate our lives? It's our lives. And I think people want to feel secure. And, when it comes to the global cabal aspect, they know exactly how we think as people. They know exactly what to say. They know exactly what to do. I mean, all of this started with, really coming into Stalin, Mao, and Hitler. They all know exactly what to say and how to do this. So if people want security in their lives, that's what they promise. Whether they deliver that or not is a whole different story, but that's what we're promised. And it's like, hey, don't worry. You need to focus on your life because you have your family, you have your job, you have all these things to worry about. Let us handle these other things for you, and then we'll just tell you what to do, and that way you don't have to think about it and you just follow through. And that's what people want. But
so Leo on the Wise down here says the masses don't want to think for themselves.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because when you start thinking for yourself, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, you're an outcast. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're like all these things. And they start labeling you. And you're just like, wait a minute. I'm just here asking questions. We had so many videos deleted just simply for bringing up questions. We didn't even say anything. We just asked questions and we were deleted. And it's like, how can we be deleted just for simply asking a question? It's just like things don't make sense. And we're just trying to figure it out. And then you delete us. So then obviously it's like, what, you don't want us to figure it out then.
So Zoe's comment here is very interesting too. The masses are just drained of their energy. And this is something I talk about a lot. I had this conversation with you one night. It's like, we are hit by so many, factors, or,
all of it.
That's what I'm looking for. It's just, we're just bombarded by all these horrible things. It's like, what's in our food, what's in our water, the media, the technology, your phone dinging all the time with all these different social media comments and platforms, and the dopamine, the way it's affecting your brain. Man. I mean, I have a problem with that. It's like sometimes I'll just pick up my phone and start scrolling. I'm like, why am I doing this? It's like a weird, and we're just being bombarded with so much crap. And it's like, even the people that are awake, even the people that are awake are probably not really reaching their full potential or fully there. And it's kind of depressing to think about sometimes.
Yeah, and and the only way to really, from my understanding, you can't wait for the world to change. You can't wait for some external factor, and I think that's what a lot of us do want to wait for. It's like, oh, when's things going to change? The change starts with us. We have to take that step forward first. Whether the genius about our government system is that when the founding fathers created America, they did everything in their power to make sure that America couldn't turn into some like tyrant place, some total totalitarian aspect of this in like what's happening in Australia. And so they gave the power really to the local level in your community. There is so much power there, and they don't want you to realize that. So a lot of people aren't motivated enough to do anything at their local level. And that's really where it starts, and especially if you want to get into government and you're a good person, get involved in the local level. That's like the best advice I can tell you. And a lot of people I talk to, that's what they say. They said, if you have children in school, make sure you're at your school board all the time. Go to your local school events, do these things, your local town hall, get involved, find out everybody who's like, in a member of what I want to say, like the Congress people there in the area.
I've done this recently. I met, I started getting invited to these Patriot dinners. It's sort of the Rebel Underground thing here in LA I was talking about earlier. And there's Gia, I can't pronounce her last name, but she's running for state legislature in, my district. And, she hosts these dinners every Wednesday night. And it's really amazing. She gets a lot of people that are, it's a very kind of small group of people that are awake to what's going on out in this area, unfortunately. But, she gets us all together, and it's really amazing. And you get to meet like-minded people. And I really enjoy it. And I definitely think, that is what it is. It's like, on a spiritual level, I think it's about everyone coming together on the planet. And how do we do that? That's an amazing first step to getting there, definitely.
Yeah, no, 100%, and then things just go from there. Whatever, people can get involved with, whether it's just talking to somebody at your local grocery store, creating a YouTube channel, whatever it is, even just like just doing things. And you don't have to go extreme with it either. You can start out, in a more of a kind of like a vanilla way of kind of easing your way into these things. You don't have to go straight into these topics. You can, start out with whatever ways you can start out with. And, but definitely like the media is the key player in this. Like without the media is really now just a propaganda mouthpiece for our government. Just how China, all the media in China is just state-run media. It's what's happening here now. And
media can mean so many different technically you're media, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when the media is like the mainstream media now, the mainstream propaganda mouthpiece media, like CNN and, New York Times and all these things. It's just like, they're just repeating. They're not, their mission is no longer to educate the people and find the facts and report on the truth. Their mission now is to keep people asleep. That's their whole mission. They're nowhere, like nothing that they're doing is trying to bring out the truth to the people. And that's why this is such a big issue.
And that's why you got Rise TV.
That's why we created Rise TV. That's part of Rise TV. Exactly. To bring, uncensored content to the people. And, since we got kicked off of YouTube, we really had to think of different ways to promote ourselves and what we want to do and how we're going to survive if we want to keep making videos. So that's why we created our Rise TV platform, which you will be joining us soon. So
yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, I've been working really hard on the scripts, and, it's been a new thing, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to share with everyone the information I've got together and presented. We got 5 minutes left of tonight's show. So if you want to get into that a little more, like how do people subscribe to your platform if they're listening tonight and want to go on?
Yeah, so rise.tv or risetv.com is our platform, and we have I'm trying to think how many different content creators. We have about like 5-6 content creators, and then we'll be having you on as well. Rob and I have our Edge of Wonder show. I have my own Ben solo show. We have Seth from Man in America on there too. And we're actually in the process of creating some really interesting documentaries. We're in the process of creating a documentary right now, and I can't go into too much detail, but all about human trafficking at the border in Texas. And we have a team that went out there and are going out again. And some of the stuff is just like, it was really hard for them to explain and say what they saw. I'll just say that it's that intense. There's so much happening on human trafficking level. You're hearing all about like cocaine busts and drug deals and cartels and all this stuff, but that's just a drop in the water to really what is going on in the human trafficking world, and it's being completely covered up by everybody. And that's the crux of this, and that's like a very crucial issue. But they personally witnessed many things, and it's like I said, it's really hard. Some of it's even hard to talk about what they saw, but we got all on camera, and we're making a big documentary about it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see that. And, we got about 3 minutes left here. So you also have your own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Started again.
Yeah. And then Rob and I are actually going to go really hard pushing Edge of Wonder on Rumble. So, we don't want to use YouTube anymore. We're trying to kind of figure out exactly what to do, but we really want to focus on Rumble right now. And we're going to put a lot more new content of Edge of Wonder. We're probably going to have a new live show that Rob and I will do. We're still kind of working out the details, but that will be on Rumble. And we just.
And then you got Ben Solo, your own show.
I have my own solo.
Ben Solo. So.
Yeah, and that's more on
YouTube.
I'm trying. I had my own channel on YouTube with like 30,000 subscribers, and YouTube just deleted me. It sucks. But and all my videos. But yeah, so I'm trying to build that up too. I am posting things on there about once a week. I post a video. So.
All right. Well, sorry, I got to wrap this up. We got like 30 seconds left. So thanks so much for joining me tonight, Ben. It was a lot of fun, and I'll be seeing you in Miami for the Project Veritas event.
Yeah,
you'll be out here helping me out with the Conscious Life Expo as well. It's looking like.
Yep.
So if anyone's out here in the LA area and wants to come by and see me speak at the Conscious Life Expo next weekend or weekend after next, make sure you do that. And please check out my Shaman Spears at shamanspears.com. Until next time, on Apolla Asteria, over and out.
Thank you, guys.